Yes.
Wow.
All right. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning and happy Sabbath.
Happy Sabbath.
Happy Sabbath.
It is an honor and a pleasure to be serving God.
Amen.
Amen.
What a joyous thing. What a miraculous thing. What a thing that gives you the gusto in the morning to know you're coming to the Lord's house of praise.
Amen.
Amen?
Amen.
There's nothing greater in life. Before I start, let's bow our heads. Heavenly Father, as I bring a message to the congregation, Lord, to the people, let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be accepted in your sight, O Lord, my strength. There is nothing greater in life than to be in love.
Amen.
But it's even better when that love is reciprocated. I love my wife.
Amen.
I love my children.
Amen.
I love my friends. But the love that brings me more joy and more peace is the love of my Savior Jesus. I'm in love with my Father. And I love to express my love with everyone I come in contact with. Because this love is so awesome that I know that everyone should experience this. Well, that's not always true. See, the question was asked of me, where is God when we are suffering? Where is God when we are suffering? Let's turn to Habakkuk 1:13. If you want to read that for me, it's on the screen as well, but if you want to turn to your Bibles, go ahead and read it, please, some of them. Habakkuk 1:13. It's on the screen.
Not anymore.
We're back, huh? Here you go.
Thou art of purer eyes than to behold evil, and canst not look on iniquity. Wherefore lookest thou upon them that deal treacherously, and holdest thy tongue when the wicked devoureth the man that is more righteous than he.
Amen.
Habakkuk is asking God, what are you doing? You hate evil, and evil is a mark against your character. Why aren't you doing anything when the righteous is suffering? That question is asked by believers and non-believers. Let me read you a quote from William Lane Craig. He's an apologist. Undoubtedly, the greatest intellectual obstacle to believe in God for both Christian and non-Christian is the so-called problem of evil. That is to say, it seems unbelievable if an all-powerful, loving God exists, he will permit so much pain and suffering in the world. I have met individuals who have the same sentiments and are totally all in with this statement. They look at a point in their lives and would say, if God is all loving and all powerful, he wouldn't have permitted this to happen in my life. We live in a world that's in crisis. Just the other day, I saw a report that shook me to the core. Emmanuel Aranda, a young man from Minneapolis, grabbed a 5-year-old boy and threw him over the balcony. Didn't know him. In Sri Lanka, at least 207 were killed in a blast targeting churches. There's more. In Woodstock, Illinois, husband and wife killed a 5-year-old boy, wrapped his body in plastic, and dumped his body in a wooded area a few miles from his home. The coroner confirmed he died of a blunt force trauma to the head and had been struck several times. This is so sad, but so real. We have the genocide of Rwanda and the Holocaust. The Holocaust. Here's a quote from a former Supreme Justice of Israel. I would say, in the name of the Holocaust, is a final conclusive proof that there cannot be a God. If there were a God, he could not be just and merciful God, but a cruel and unjust God. A God of iniquity, not a God that does slumber and sleep, who watches over his people, over all to tribute God to cruelty, injustice, and iniquity. We, if I may say so, should do him the favor of denying his existence. Wow. I do know why it's important to believe in the existence of a reasonable God, even in the midst of suffering. Does anyone remember the book When Bad Things Happen to Good People?
Amen. Yep.
The author, Harold Kushner, was revealing his life story of his son. In an early age, his son was diagnosed with rare genetic disease called progeria. Progeria. Remember this movie, Benjamin Button, it was? Yeah. This disease, of course, you see that the child has no hair on his body, and they die in early adolescence. When Mr. Kushner was laying his son into the grave, his whole view of God came crashing down. Because in his mind, if God was all loving and all powerful, he would have intervened. My son died, therefore, God must be all powerful and all loving, but not both. In his anguish, he's saying, God can't be both. Omnipotence and all loving are incompatible when faced with the suffering that we are faced with on this earth. Another author stated, if God is perfectly and benevolent and also omnipotent and mighty, why is there evil in this world? Why does God permit it? From the physiological point of view, faced with what we see on this earth, the loving God and powerful God don't connect. But yes, but from a biblical standpoint, the Bible is very clear that God is all powerful, that there's nothing too hard for him to do.
Amen.
The book of Jeremiah is clear, and that God spoke things into existence from nothing. For with God, nothing is impossible. Jeremiah 32:17 says, "Ah, Lord God, behold, thou hast made the heaven and the earth by the great power and stretched out an arm, and there's nothing too hard for thee." We also see in the Bible that God is love. 1 John 4:8. He that loveth and knoweth not God, for God is love. Yes, As we look to see these two components seem to be at odds, in our minds, we have restricted the understanding of what it means to be God. Isaiah 55:8. For what?
Not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, saith the Lord.
It is hard for us to comprehend. That's why God's word is so important that we read to understand these things. The Bible lets me know that one thing God cannot do also. Yes, I just said that. There's one thing that God cannot do. I was getting more feedback from that. I said there's one thing that God cannot do.
What is it?
My brother. Hebrews 6:18. That by two immutable things in which it was impossible for God to lie, we might have strong consolation where a fled for refuge and lay hold upon the hopes set before us. God our Father will never, ever lie to us. That's a promise our God has made. Our God is an awesome God.
Amen.
Why, when he created us, he gave us a free will. My God is awesome. He gave us a free will. You see, love cannot be forced. I cannot force my wife to love me. My daughter, they have to fall in love with me. It cannot be coerced. Love is a choice. And when it comes to understanding God's love for us and wondering if he cares for us and when we are suffering, he made it clear for us. In this book, Job. Turn to Job 1:6. Now it says, now there's a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan came also among them. And the Lord said to Satan, when comest thou? Then Satan answered the Lord and said, from going to and fro in the earth, and from walking up and down it. And the Lord said to Satan, hast thou considered my servant Job, that there is none like him in the earth, a perfect and upright man, one that feareth God and escheweth evil. Then Satan answered the Lord and said, doth Job fear God for naught? Hast not thou made a hedge about him and about his house and about all he had on every side? Thou hast blessed the work of his hands, and his substance is increased in the land. One thing about Satan, the devil, he always wanted to ask what God does. He always wanted to trick us, make us think that we are less than what God desired of us. So God said, put forth thy hand and now, and touch all that he hath, and he will curse thee to thy face. That's what Satan said to God. Now, who knows you better, God or Satan?
God.
God knew Job, didn't he? Well, let's see. And the Lord said to Satan, behold, all that he had in thy power, only upon himself, put not forth thine hand. So Satan went forth from the presence of the Lord. Now, this is the conversation God and Satan was having. As we continue to read the things that begin to unfold. But it's a conversation that God and Satan are talking about his servant. And when I was reading this, I said, is Satan having a conversation about me? with God?
Yeah, sure.
You ever wonder that?
Every day.
Is they having a conversation about you with God? I would say so.
Every day. As we speak.
Because we are all God's children. And Satan's job is to destroy us and to take us away from the fold of God. And there was a day when his sons and daughters were eating and drinking wine in the eldest brother's house. And there came a messenger unto Job and said, the oxen and were plowing, and the asses feeding beside them. And the Sabaeans fell upon them and took them away. Yea, they have slain the servants with the edge of the sword, and I only escaped to tell thee. So Job was sitting down and having a meal. Here comes this story. He's like, what? And before he can even say anything else, while he was yet speaking, there came also another and said, the fire of God is fallen from heaven and hath burned up the sheep and the servants and consumed them, and I only am escaped alone to tell thee. Job is sitting there again. You have to picture this. Two stories all at once. He was just sitting around, having a peaceful day, when all these things started happening. In my line of work, Job was having a cold blue. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's a full cold. Verse 17. While he was yet speaking, you're going to hear this word while, okay? While he was yet speaking, there came also another and said, the Chaldeans made out 3 bands and fell upon the camels and have carried them away. Yea, and slain the servants with the edge of the sword, and I only escaped alone to tell thee. Man. I don't know about you, but what would you be doing right now? Would you be run out the door on your knees? On your knees. Joe, huh? Okay. While he was yet speaking, yes, sounds familiar? While he was yet speaking, there came another and said, thy sons and thy daughters were eating and drinking wine in their eldest brother's house. And behold, there came a great wind from the wilderness and smote the 4 corners of the house, and it fell upon the young men, and they are dead. And I only escape alone to tell thee. This seems ridiculously crazy. Like I said, he was just sitting down, eating and drinking, having fun with his family. And yet, one thing after another, after another, after another, after another. Like I said, Job was having a cold blue. Verse 20. Then Job arose and rent his mantle and shaved his head and fell down upon the ground and worshipped. What? He fell down and worshipped. Something's not right here. I mean, some of us, we hit a pole in our car or something scratch, and we get out and words come out of our mouth we shouldn't say. I don't see us, oh, I'm going to pray for this car. Bow down and worship. No. Verse 21. And said naked, I came out of my mother's womb, and naked shall I return thither. The Lord gave it, and the Lord has taken it away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. In all this, Job sinned not, nor charged God foolishly. Maybe you have encountered some tragedy in your life.
Amen.
Maybe not on the magnitude of Job. But the question that still comes up, I don't care who you are, is God. God. Why is this happening to me? I was scrubbing with my doctor a couple of days ago, and he was at the table, and it was a difficult case. It's kind of funny. And he was trying to get things situated with the wives and stuff like that, and out of his mouth came, "Oh God, why are you doing this to me?" Seriously. I was fortunately scrubbed in. I looked over and I said, "Wait a second. You mean, why are you saying why God is letting this do to me? Is there somebody else you can talk about?" And I said, "Let's wait a few minutes and let's see what God can do." Of course, the case was successful. We quickly blame God. We never give credit where credit is due. There's no rational reason for this. What was Job to think? He was a righteous man who lived a life dedicated to the Lord. Well, you know how people are. They think because you are a Christian and you believe in Jesus, things like this shouldn't happen to you. Things like this shouldn't happen to you. And one time in a situation, somebody asked me, stuff was going on in my life, I said, "Are you living right? Are you living right?" Job. As you see in Job's life, awful things, immaculate things happened to him. But the story continues. Turn to Job 2, verse 1 through 8. Again, there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord. And Satan came along them to present himself before the Lord. And the Lord said to Satan, "From whence comest thou?" And Satan answered the Lord and said, "From going to and fro from the earth, and from walking up and down it." Seconds, my son. And the Lord said unto Satan, "Hast thou considered my servant Job?" You heard that before? And the Lord said to Satan, "From whence?" And the Lord said to Satan, "Hast thou considered servant Job right?" And Satan answered the Lord and said, "Skin for skin, yea, all that the man hath will he give for his life." You see what happened, that after all those things happened to Job, he tried everything else, took all his possession. He said, "You believe that Job still cares for you and loves you? Let me do something else." And Satan answered the Lord and said, skin for skin, yea, all that a man hath will give his life. But put forth thy hand now, and touch his bone and his flesh, and he will curse thee to thy face. And the Lord said unto Satan, behold, he is in thine hand, but save his life. God knows you better than you know yourself.
Amen.
Because I'm thinking, man, God had a lot of confidence in Job.
Testing that faith.
He said, you've done your worst, but you know what? Go ahead and give him some affliction. Make him suffer a bit more. And he took him. So Satan went forth from the presence of the Lord and smote Job with sword, boils from the sole of his feet unto his crown. And he took a potsherd to scrape himself withal, and he sat down among the ashes. Job day, it's a bad day. Sometimes you think you're having a bad day. This guy had a bad day. But at least, with all this going on, he had the support of his loving wife, right?
No.
Amen? It's good to have a loving wife and support. Amen. Amen. It is awesome. Awesome. Let's see. Dan said his wife unto him, dost thou still retain thy integrity? Curse God and die. Right? This is his loving wife.
That's good. But it was eating and drinking.
So even she didn't have the faith in Job. She told him to curse God and die. This is one time you can listen to your wife. Right? Job responds, but he said unto her, thou speakest as one of the foolish women speaketh. Why shall we receive good at the hand of God, and shall we not receive evil? In all this, Job did not sin with his lips. Job has had it bad. Losing his family, his wife's support, but at least he had one good thing going for him still. He had his best friends. His homeboys. Those vatos. He had those. He had his friends. What? Come on.
Backbones got weak.
But let's see what happened. Now, when Job's 3 friends heard of this evil that was to come upon him, they came every one from his own place. Eliphaz, the Temanite, and Bildad the Shuhite, and Zophar the Nemanite, for they had made an appointment together to come to mourn with him and comfort him. And when they lifted their eyes afar off and knew him not, they lifted up their voice and wept, and they rent every one of his mantle and sprinkled dust upon their heads toward heaven. So they sat down with him upon the ground 7 days and 7 nights, and none spake a word unto him, for they saw that his grief was very great. These so-called friends were not supporting Job, but condemning him, for he must have done something wrong to God to do this. He has done something in the sight of God to be having this code blue, this affliction. They even got Job to ask, why? Why, God? Why? Why is this happening to me, God? I love God. Because sometimes you ask God questions. Sometimes he's going to answer.
Might not be what you want to hear.
Then God decided to speak. God decided to speak to Job. Job 38, 1 to 10. And the Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind. Now, imagine being Job. Or just be yourself. And you go into one of these afflictions. And finally, after your family's gone, your wife told you to curse God and died, your best friend came and said, you must have done something wrong. And it's like this is how it works. They start bearing on you. And you love God, but then you start having a little maybe they're right. So then you start asking, God, why? Why? Now imagine, like I said, think of you. And then you heard to the world, man, Job. Now that was, I don't know what it was like when he heard his voice, but I'm sure he got attention.
Amen.
God said, who is this that darkeneth counsel by words without knowledge? Gird up thy loins like a man. Put your big boy pants on, Joe.
I like when you said that.
Gird up your loins like a man, for I will demand of thee an answer thou me. So God said, look, I'm tired of you asking these questions.
Man.
Now, I'm going to ask you these questions. First one, where was thou when I laid the foundations of the earth? Declare it if thou hast that understanding. Who hath laid the measures thereof, if thou knowest, or who hath stretched the line upon it? Whereupon on the foundation thereof fastened, or who laid the cornerstone thereof? When the morning stars sang together, and all the sons of God shouted for joy. Or who shut up the sea with doors when it brake forth, as if it had issued out of a womb? When it made the cloud of garment thereof, and thick darkness, swelling band for it. There are 64 questions total that God asked.